Alright, this is video 2 of my quarter scale sandrail build. In this video I'm going to be talking about the suspension and how I built it. Here on the front I made the suspension arms with a 1/2 inch aluminum round stock, same as the frame. And then in the middle here I machined up these billet plates. The lower one has the integrated tabs for the shock to mount onto. And the upper one here is just a small one for the threads to go into from this heim joint. When I originally made them, I hadn't decided on what tires and stuff I was going to use. Later decided to go with the same axles and wheels as the HPI Baja, just so that all the wearable parts would be easy to replace rather than making everything. And then if anything wears out, I had to remake them. This way I could just buy some new bearings and axles or whatever happened to wear out. When I ended up using those wheels, it turned out that when I turned the wheels, they would rub the suspension arms, so I had to notch those out. I had to gusset here so that the wheels could turn, farther, so I'd have a decent amount of steering. On the other ends, to mount them to the chassis, I made kind of like a heim joint, a little simpler though. I machined up out of solid steel a threaded end and then a ball on this end here, and then I machined them flat and drilled a hole through it, and then made these bushings to go through like this with the bolt, and then it all just kind of pivots on those bushings. It worked out pretty good. And then on this end there's actually a heim joint that I bought with the misalignment spacers so that it can steer and go up and down. On the back I've done something similar with the 1/2 inch round stock and the ends that I had made in one heim joint that I bought, and I made the axle block to fit the HPI axles and put this all together. But when I drove it, the torque actually would twist up these suspension arms because there's not a whole lot of support out here on this end, and so it would actually wrap them up, and it didn't work out very well. So rather than modifying them or messing around with them, I decided to make up a new set of billet arms. I got that mocked up on the other side of the car. Let me turn this around. On this side I got together the new arms that I machined. And these are all made out of solid 1/2 inch billet aluminum. And they're nice and stiff. They got X bracing in here, integrated tab for the shock to mount on. And that goes up to this upper shock mount. And then the upper arm I changed, or as you see on the old one, I had it going to the outside of these arms with those joints. On this side, when I made the new ones, I decided to remake it and go in between them here, a little simpler, and use the same axle blocks, same heim joint, misalignment spacers. And this works out really nice, and it doesn't have any of that twisting action going on. It's nice and stiff and worked out really well. So after doing the rears, I decided that I liked the way they looked a lot better than the round tubing, so I machined up a new set of front arms too. So these I again machined out of 1/2 inch billet and integrated the shock tab and everything into the lower arms. The upper arms just have a little bit of webbing in them to stiffen them up. And then to get rid of the tire rubbing clearance problem, I tapered them in quite a bit more so I could steer the wheels quite a bit more. And then I used a different style heim joint on this one, where when I did the original side, I had used if you can see it there, I used a male heim joint where there's a thread on the heim going into the arm, and it's kind of flimsy because it's only a 1032 thread. And so when I did this set, I decided to get a female heim joint. And I can show you here on the other arms how I actually machined the end with kind of a oval shaped hole in it there to match the shape of the heim joint, and then that will just fit right in there like that. Kind of hard to do with one hand. and that goes in, and then it gets bolted in from the back, and so that's a lot more rigid and solid on these new arms. Worked out a lot better. And then, same as I did in the rear billet arms, it just goes through the arm with the new steel bushing instead of the old brass bushings. So I didn't want the brass to be on the aluminum, I went with steel on the aluminum. And so it worked out really nice. And it looks, I think it looks cooler anyway. So, I think in the next video I'm going to show you how I built the shocks, and that's it.